Right. So I didn't, last few days I'm thinking to myself, man, Jason, you may have to do a video that will be the first time you ever have said something like that, like this is really a possibility. And that is a stock market not crashing, not going down, and actually melting up, as Lindsey Williams has said. But I still want to remind you, the last several things he said from the same source were dead wrong. But he said because Hillary did not win, they didn't crash the economy, the markets like they had planned, because they know Trump will not play that and go with them on that one. So they have no choice, but we're going to melt it upward instead. That's what he said. Again, I don't know but if that's what he said, and so far everything this guy told him has been wrong over these last several years, you might have to wonder maybe it's not going to melt up, or maybe it's going to melt up a little bit and then crash at the end of the year. But I have to come out here because I am Realist News, and even if something is completely 180 degrees different than what we all thought, myself especially, I'm going to cover it just to say, hey, this is a possibility, and here's why, okay? So first, we're going to start off with this article from the Economic Collapse blog, Mr. Michael Snyder, which plays into exactly why I think even the housing market may not come down as hard as some of us may have thought if this gets put into place. The problem is this ain't going to get put into place fast enough, and that is a universal basic income. They're not going to be able to give everybody a universal basic income quick enough to make the housing market not come down and all that. There's no way. But we're going to discuss that at the end. Free money. Potential presidential candidate, you know who? Mr. Mark Zuckerberg in 2020. He may run. CEO of Facebook, you know him. Super leftist. Suggests that all of Americans should get a universal basic income. So he's over there hanging out with Merkel. Remember that? And the open mic was on about the immigrants doing things to people over there. And Facebook users over there were telling the whole country about it. And Miss Merkel didn't like that. And the open mic caught her talking to him about it. And he said, yeah, we'll have to do something about that, on Facebook. That guy. So over there is where they're trialing universal basic income, not with the whole country or any certain particular country, but 2, 3, 4, 5,000 citizens. They're trialing it. Wouldn't you be like to be the one that gets trialed? Hey, give me $1,500 a month for free, just for little experiment. Oh, let me do that. But we're going to cover that at the end of this. Potential presidential candidate Mark Zuckerberg suggests that all Americans should get a universal basic income. Should everyone in America receive a basic income directly from the federal government? Considering the fact that we already have $20 trillion in debt, such a concept may sound quite foolish to many of you, but this is an idea that is really starting to gain traction in leftist circles. In fact, leftist Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg suggested that this was something that we should explore. During the commencement speech that he just delivered at Harvard, he went to Harvard, didn't graduate, stole the idea of Facebook from some guys. They sued him successfully, but, it was more or less a payoff to them, and he took over Facebook, or kept Facebook. Anyways, so he gave a speech at Harvard where he failed to graduate and dropped out to go do Facebook. For quite a while, it has been obvious that Zuckerberg is very strongly considering a run for the presidency in 2020, but up until just recently, we haven't had many clues about where he would stand on particular issues. If he's serious about proposing a universal basic income for all Americans, that would make Zuckerberg very appealing to the far-left voters that flocked to the Bernie Sanders campaign. Think about it. You're a millennial, socialist guy like Bernie Sanders who's going to give us stuff. Matter of fact, his twin brother now, Mark Zuckerberg, he was just like us one time. Matter of fact, he's fairly young enough. Maybe he could kind of be considered a millennial. Matter of fact, I think he could be from his age. And he wants to give us free money forever, every month. Oh, I got to vote for that guy. Again, this is how all empires ended. When the people found out they could vote themselves money, welfare, it was the end of the empire. Yesterday, I discussed the fact that the number of Americans that are receiving money from the government each month has hit an all-time high, but Zuckerberg would take things much further. According to him, society would be far better off if everyone got an income from the government. Quote, every generation expands its definition of equality. Now it's time for our generation to define a new social contract. We should have a society that measures progress not by economic metrics like GDP, but how many of us have a role we find meaningful? We should explore ideas like universal basic income to make sure everyone has a cushion to try new ideas. Zuckerberg said that because he had a safety net if projects like Facebook had failed. He was confident enough to continue on without the fear of failing. Others, he said, such as children who need to support households instead of poking away on computers learning how to code, don't have the foundation Zuckerberg had. Universal basic income would provide that sort of cushion, he said, or he argued. Such a proposal is going to look really good to a lot of people at first glance. But who is going to pay for this? Of course, the truth is that the money for the people that are not working would come from taxing the people that are working. I don't think that Zuckerberg has really thought this through. Are young people going to have an incentive to work if they can just stay at home and watch movies and play games all day while collecting their universal basic incomes from the government? And why would anyone want to bust their rear ends working for a living when their incomes are just going to be taxed extremely heavily to pay for all the people that aren't working? We are already $20 trillion in debt, but politicians on the left just want to keep giving even more free stuff to the people. During his presidential campaign, Bernie Sanders suggested that everyone in America deserves a minimum standard of living. And again, can't have a minimum standard of living unless you make sure everybody's getting enough money automatically so they can have that, right? Universal basic income. And that every citizen is entitled to universal health care, free college, and basic housing. In previous generations, very few people would have ever taken someone like Bernie Sanders seriously. But in our day and time, socialism is really starting to catch on. In fact, one survey found that 4 out of every 10 adults say they prefer socialism to capitalism. The American Culture and Faith Institute recently conducted a survey of 18 adults and older, 18-year-old adults or older. It shows not only how deeply divided Americans are on some issues, but also how their view of the nation stands in many cases in stark contrast to our nation's founding principles. Most Americans, 58%, see themselves as politically moderate, while a quarter identify as conservative and 17% as liberal. Those who are both socially and fiscally conservative, the group tracked by the ACFI in greatest detail, were 6% of the population. But those differences don't reveal the greatest divide and danger to America's future. The most alarming result, according to George Barna, was that 4 out of every 10 adults say they prefer socialism to capitalism. Anyways, and as I noted yesterday, millennials are particularly attracted to socialism. This could have dramatic implications for our society as older generations of Americans slowly die off. Unfortunately, there is just one huge problem with socialism. It does not work. If you want to see the end result of socialism, just move to Venezuela or North Korea for a while. In socialist nations, there is very little incentive to work hard. Instead, people tend to become very lazy and expect the government to provide everything that they need. When people work hard and are productive, the overall wealth of a society goes up. And when people sit around and wait for someone else's work, or not work, but wait for someone else to provide for them, the overall wealth of a society goes down. Would Mark Zuckerberg have worked so hard to develop Facebook if he knew that the government would just come in and take most of the money away so that others could have universal basic income? Actually, kind of, listen, he took someone else's idea. It wasn't even his idea to begin with, so he's already on that socialist page. Let me take from someone else and use it. They sued him and collected. So this is no wonder this is why this is coming out of Mark Zuckerberg's mouth. So let's talk about this now. So I had a little title. I'm not sure what I'm going to title this video yet, but my initial thought was one and only way the fraud economy can continue and the housing boom as well. And I'm going to have to add Wall Street. Is it possible that Wall Street won't crash, the stock market won't crash, like Lindsay had initially said just recently? Webbot has data of Dow going up to 100,000+, and not too far back reports earlier this year. But I remember years and years and years ago, it talked about a $20,000 or 20,000 Dow and then a crash. And then I thought, well, that's funny because that is very old data, but his new data is saying we're going up to 100,000. Doesn't make sense. Well, it makes sense if our dollar starts going down like in Venezuela. Venezuela has the most powerful stock market right now. It's the most awesome stock market. It's gone up, I think, 17 times in value from what it was just, not that long ago. Why? Because their dollar is becoming worthless. It is being devalued left and right. It is worthless. Therefore, company stocks reflect that, just like gold and silver do over in Venezuela, which is why a while back, one of these babies right here, one silver coin could buy 6 months of food. So, is it possible we are not going to see a stock market crash? It's possible, especially if universal income came into play. In the housing market, which has hit an all-time high, and again, subprime borrowers and millennials, we need to get them in a house. That's what I keep hearing right now. We need to get them in a house, and I have another video to do. I think I sent it to myself. Yes, I do. 70% of millennials have less than $1,000 saved for buying a house. In other words, you're not going to buy a house. But if they had universal basic income, and it was, I don't know, $2,000 a month, well, they could easily start paying off the student loan debt, for one. They could have some extra money to save up for a house. And I'm going to tell you, like I told you before when I did these videos on these other countries who were trialing universal basic income. Unless they put price controls, like socialism does, on everything important, gasoline, energy, electricity, housing prices, rental included, what else we got? Housing, certain food, I have to do that too. Because what would happen immediately is everything is going to go up in price. I said this before. You start giving people a universal basic income and we will go nowhere in a hurry. It may start off looking okay, but very rapidly, mark my words, everything would go up in price. Housing would go up, rentals would go back up, stock market, of course, would go back. Everything's going to go back up because everybody now has $2,000 a month coming in. Whoa. Spend, baby, spend. You will see prices skyrocket. And then it'll be basically evened out, or the median would find its way. Simply that, okay, this is where stuff used to be when we didn't have $2,000 a month in universal basic income. And here's now the prices that we do have $2,000 a month. And you're going to find ultimately that the $2,000 a month you are getting for free is completely gone on basic stuff. Rent, electricity, insurance, boom, gone. Everything jumped up to gobble up that $2,000 of money coming in, which puts you right back to square one where we are now. Now we've got $2,000 a month coming in, and it's being gobbled up immediately, and I still got student loans to pay back, but I can't because my house payments are so high, my insurance is so high, my car insurance is so high, healthcare is so high, everything's so high. With this universal basic income, we can't do it. But I got some news here too. The chances of them even going with this, we're gonna take, our government, we're gonna take Mark Zuckerberg's word, we're gonna do this right away. It's not happening anytime, even kind of soon. So I don't expect housing to stay floating great and looking good. It has to go down. We're already seeing signs. I've already showed you numerous ones. The markets, on the other hand, they should absolutely be going down. No question. Unequivocally, they should be going down. But you see, if we did have a universal basic income and the Fed said we're ready to unwind our balance sheet now, you've got every American, potentially adult anyways, I don't know if it's family or adult or however it works, pulling in $2,000 a month each, whatever. The banks are going to have more money because everyone's going to be paying their loans back, again, in the beginning, very easily. Car loans, default, no, not anymore. I'm not in default anymore. I'd like to pay that off or make my payments on it anyways. It's going to be touted as, oh, look at this. This is a beautiful thing. People are out of debt. There are no more bankruptcy numbers. They're going way down. This is fantastic. And then the banks are going to have a lot of money, and then they can buy back all the garbage assets they sold to the Federal Reserve back because they've got this, flush full of money now from us with our universal basic incomes. So it would look great. But again, then this problem's going to creep in there where everything goes up in price to eat up that $2,000 everybody's getting. You will read people who have said, I'm just barely surviving right now. My business is barely surviving. I finally can raise rates because I know these people have more money to spend now, and they're going to spend because this is what people do. We spend when we have money. We just spend. Again, it'll look good at first, until all the prices rise and eat up that 2K. It's gone. So that's why I don't think this may not even happen here. And even if they want it to happen, it ain't gonna happen anytime soon. But there's still the possibility that this market could melt up if we have some dollar troubles. It is possible. So I do want to just make everyone aware, as crazy as it sounds, it should not happen. There's no way in hell this should be happening. Again, look at the thermometer, so to speak, of everything. But when the Feds, the central banks across the world are buying up everything across the board, this is what happens. This is exactly what happens. Prices keep going up. People can't afford houses, so they're looking around. How can I get into a house right now? It doesn't make any sense. But again, you go to Zillow and look around, and there's millions and millions and millions of houses for sale. 500 days, 600 days on Zillow, 300 days. And I saw something new today. I was looking around. There's a little orange one, a little orange dot you can click on the menu, and it says, show me recently sold. Oh, so I click on that, and on the particular view I had, there's around 500, and I think Cliff I was telling me it only shows 500 dots anyways. But next to the dots under that little menu, which let me just show you this real quick. Hang on. All right, so let me switch pages. All right, so right here, and I've got some criteria here. Go back to any, apply. All right, so right here, listing type, recently sold. Now let's just look at the numbers. We'll just round this off. 1,000, 500, another 500. All right, so that's 2,000 foreclosures, whatever. Let's just call this around 2,500. Recently sold 8,000. Oh wow. Okay, so all these dots on here mean nothing. All these ones for sale for 200, 300, 400 days haven't sold. This is this means nothing. So I decided, let me just click on recently sold and see what the deal is. 8,000 have sold recently. I want to know which ones. This is where have I been? What am I talking about? Well, when you click on one, and now this one says it sold 3/1/2017. That's what I would expect from recently sold. But I would click around other ones. Let's see what this one shows. Also 2017. I was clicking around 2017 as well. Maybe I need to zoom in. I'm not sure. I was finding 2014, 2015. There's 2016. There's one. 2014, 6/20, 2014. All right, so point being, you're going to show years worth of recently sold. 2014, 15, 16. You're going to show 3 years old stuff and call that recently sold. What I call recently sold, maybe the last 6 months. Okay. So, anyways, I wanted to just show you that of how even Zillow is going to show stuff ancient. Shouldn't there be another check box? Box recently sold, 1 year or less, recently sold, 2 years, or more, 3 years or more, etc. Right. So it's a little false temperature gauge here, if you will, on this nonsense. But anyways, I just wanted to say there is the possibility. There actually is the possibility that the markets could melt up, like Lindsay said. But the guy who gave this to him is the same guy who's been wrong numerous times now. So if he's saying it's going to melt up, it almost makes me think, no, it's still going to melt down like we thought. But I just need to prepare anyone out there that there is a possibility markets could actually melt up. I don't see how housing could, though, because people's income isn't going to melt up. Your income's going to stay the same, and these people still can't afford these houses today. So that's not going to change. That shouldn't matter anyway. So, anyways, take care.